Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight on the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. And in today's episode, we will be discussing Sycamore Street in the community of Holyoke, Massachusetts. So in general, what is Sycamore Street like?
Sycamore Street is the shortest street. It's actually not really part of the first plan to have grid streets out in that location. And it was built afterwards. And we're going to talk about some of the institutions along it, including the Holy Cross Church, and why it was added to the grid streets, and then how it compares and how it's changed through the years. Now, Sycamore Street, by design, was very residential. A lot of Victorian homes were upon it. It was made in Orrin Allen's plan to develop this area, and he wanted to add an extra street in because it fit just short of the start of the cemeteries in that area, Forestdale and St. Jerome's. And so it fit in, and he would develop all around this area. So this is great to add a street here. But it only came about half size compared to these other gridded streets, especially compared to some of the north-south streets were long. And so it compares very well, and it's actually very beautiful and elegant and very fun to walk over.
And tell us about the Holy Cross Church campus.
Okay, this is the north end of Sycamore Street, and you start with a bang, but beautiful Holy Cross Church is right there. But also from that edge, if you start around there, you can also see the St. Paul's Episcopal Church, one block onwards. You can also see the many beautiful homes around the area, including Casper Ranger's home and the Landers' home, and also across the street you can see the Frank Townhouse, which when he died he gave to the Holy Cross Church to be their rectory. So Sycamore Street starts with a bang right in that area, and that's for good because the whole street is very pleasant and quiet to walk upon. This is probably the only busy area on the whole street.
And really quick, before we continue with our interview, just to fill our listeners in, for more information, or if you're interested in signing up for any of his various tours, check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, and his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, why was Sycamore Street added to the gridded streets of Holyoke?
Because Orrin Allen, a developer of the Elmwood neighborhood, wanted more space to develop more homes. He actually built about 300 houses in Holyoke. He would design them and had his contract firm build them. He built up that Oakdale neighborhood and spread out from there greatly. And to get more homes in there, you need to fill in as much space as possible. And he noticed that there was a little bit of space after the last of the gridded streets that were planned, and he added the Sycamore Street. So it was named, like the others that go from north to south, it was named after trees. And this was a very short street. And I told you in the eastern direction, northern direction had the Holy Cross Church and the St. Paul's Church. But as you go to the other end, you only get homes and homes and more homes. And most of them are from the 1890s, 1910. But after that, it was filled in, especially toward the southern end, with some modern homes, a few ranches in there.
And how does Sycamore Street compare to other streets around the city of Holyoke?
Okay, it's a pleasant looking street, and for that reason, since it's all pleasant, it's great to look at. Um, and that's how it compares very well. And also, it starts with that church area, and that's always gorgeous area. And and also another thing, it hasn't changed much with the years, and that's fabulous because what you see from 1890 to 1905, that's basically what it was 120 years ago, whereas other streets would have changed drastically. Now, one thing that comes up short with is that it is a shorter kind of street, and for that reason, I mean, it might cover 5 or 6 blocks, and only 4 of them are gorgeous homes, and the others are more modern. So it's not quite like all the others, and it wasn't made to be because it wasn't even part of the original gridded plan. So it's a nice place to be, but it's a little more distinct, and I think it'll stay that way for a long time.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And of course, thank you to our sponsors. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Check out a large selection of our other podcasts at his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you, and hope you join us again. Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. Joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and gives public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within the communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. And currently the communities that he has selected to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. And now his tours spotlight on local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as parks and streets and selected historical houses within each community. And so in today's episode, we will be discussing Locust Street, located in the community of Holyoke, Massachusetts. So in general, what is Locust Street like?
Locust Street is one of the shorter gridded streets. It's a street where there are nice things to look at along it, including the St. Paul's Episcopal Church and also the Orrin Allen House, because he was an important contractor and he had a hobby that was incredibly interesting. And Locust, compared to the other streets, is a very pleasant street because of all the Victorian homes on it, especially towards the north, and then towards the south, it gets to be very ordinary Victorian homes because Allen built them that way. So it's a nice little street. It's very hilly in the beginning, then all of a sudden it gets flat, then hilly again. So you got to take that into account. It's easy to walk, but harder to bike ride. It's a nice street. I hope you do visit it.
And tell us about the area around the St. Paul's Episcopal Church.
All right, this section around here is the northern edge of Locust Street. And the church did not start here. It started where the Hadley Falls Trust Company is now. And they started out as a congregation in 1863 and started building a new church in 1866. And by 1868, it was ready. But they didn't stay there for long because they wanted to follow where most of the parishioners were, and they wanted a nicer church for themselves, along with a rectory. And so, in 1904, they built up this Gothic-style church. They had started in 1903 to build it up, and it was ready by that year. So, you can see it's very beautiful, well maintained. The steeple is a very unique look to it. It has a nice reddish color to it. In the back is an attachment from 1955, which is a social hall. And you can see the rectory is along its side. And the rectory is Elizabethan architectural style. It was built in 1906 where it's a pasture. And the rectory is still active. I mean, after almost 120 years now. And so it's a very beautiful campus, and it is basically the start of Locust Street, so I hope you start there and then you get to see some of the houses after that.
And real quick, before we continue with our interview, just to fill our listeners in, to find out more information, or if you're interested in signing up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find any of his podcasts and videos of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun, educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, tell us about Orrin Allen's house and work.
All right, Orrin Allen was the son of Samuel Allen, whose farm was enormous, and he let his son take over this area and land. And what did he make out of it? He made it a sub-neighborhood, a village, with 300 homes made by the Allen construction firm. 300 of them. They're not very unique looking homes. They're all Victorian, but they all look very much the same. They're very rather average or plain looking Victorian homes. But still, they're nice. Most of them are still around. And people are glad that he put in this sub-neighborhood. You could call this the middle class Victorian home neighborhood of downtown area. It was put in along trolley line, so a lot of people would use the trolley, get to work, and get back home afterwards. So Orrin Allen was important in the history of Holyoke for this reason. He made all these average-looking homes. Now, he had a really cool hobby, and his hobby was to plant rose bushes in his backyard, side yard, front yard. Now, the incredible part is how many he planted and how many varieties he planted, because he wanted all his rose bushes to be different from one another. He was not into the same. And so he ended up having about 100 varieties of rose bushes. And they vary by mostly color, but by appearance. And he might have had the largest rose variety collection of that time. So in 1900, he might have been the rose garden person of the whole world. And I don't think any of the roses still exist. His home was at the northwest corner of Hampshire and Locust Street. His home is still there. I can't see any rose bushes in the back, but roses don't last that long unless you tend to them constantly and get them going, especially all these varieties. But he had a cool hobby, and I hope you keep that in mind when you look at his house.
And how does Locust Street compare to other streets in Holyoke?
It's totally part of the gridded pattern. Its southern end curves inwards, and you get more modern homes down there. But for the 5 blocks of the old part of Locust Street, you get a very unique look to it. You pass by, of course, the institution of St. Paul's Episcopal Church. You also pass by the Allen House. And there's many more houses along here, all of them pretty well maintained at this point. And so, for that reason, it's a very easy street to tour upon, to walk upon, to enjoy yourself, and to try to understand the history of Holyoke a little bit better along the way.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and topics of your expertise. And thank you to our sponsors. And of course, we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And check out a large selection of other podcasts at his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you, and hope you join us again.